Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Man, you know I gotta get my hair right before we start, man. You guys know I got a lot of hair, man. Anyways, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so as you guys know, we got the Champions Chess Tour final going on. So I have the match, the first game of the match between Wesley and Denis Lazavik. So all of my people in the Philippines, I will say Maraming Salamat. Anybody who is coming from Belarus, I will say Ziakush. I think that's how you say it, Ziakush. Anybody who is Belarusian or who does speak Belarusian, if you want to critique my Belarusian, feel free to do so. But yes, if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, homie. So we got the move e4, we got e5, all standard stuff to start the game with. Knight to f3, knight to c6, by far the, most common way you're going to see, in this particular opening. We got bishop to b5, the Roy Lopez, and then we do see the Berlin. And Lazavik is like, hey, bro, I'm going to Berlin you, bro. And Wesley So's like, you can't Berlin me, son. I'm the Berliner. Anyways, we got the move d3. Just keeping everything solid. We got bishop to c5. Bishop takes and then pawn takes. And we get into, I will say, an interesting position. We got bishop going to g5. This is actually a somewhat rare move, but it does have a really good win percentage. So we're looking pretty good. So we do see the move bishop coming to e6, and then we do see knight b to d2. Now, the reason I said it's an interesting position, because I think some of you might be wondering, wait a minute. I mean, I've been looking at this e-pawn like the whole time. Like, it seems like white has just not captured it for like multiple moves. You remove this knight, so isn't the pawn just like ready to take? Well, this is the problem that you have to be paying attention to. And it's been present in the position the entire time. If you say, hey, bro, I'm going to give me a pawn. Congratulations to me. You would be looking at queen to d4. And you guys remember this tactic from a video I did before. It is always something you have to be considering in these positions because you are threatening checkmate here. So this knight is going to absolutely drop. So don't do that. So like I said, we do see knight b to d2. We got the queen coming down to d6. We got bishop taking f6, pawn taking f6. And something that you have to be paying attention to. It's not absolutely relevant in this position, but you are kind of giving black just a little bit with this move. You are opening this G file completely, or half opening it anyway. And it kind of goes along with black's plan because they're like, hey man, I want to castle queenside anyway. We see castles by white, and this is like super bold considering all the stuff that I just said. We do see long castles by black. And then we do see king to h1, and this is the novelty of the game. Very understandable, simply because g2 is actually a pretty tender point. So you see white kind of going at this pawn, or you see white, kind of making their pieces to where they're defending this idea from black. We do see rook h to g8. We do see queen to e2. At some point, maybe you want to move this rook anywhere, or even just to g1 to kind of protect. So, you kind of have to do something about this f2 pawn. We do see rook to g7, knight goes to c4. You can trade with the bishop, but, I mean, the bishop is actually a really good piece kind of attacking white's king side. So you don't necessarily want to give it up for the knight. You got queen going back to d7. You got knight back to e3. So you see this maneuver. It comes back, to kind of eyeball g2 just a little bit. We do see rook d to g8. And black, they got a little attack going on, man. They got this, like I said, this half open file. They're putting a lot of pressure on g2 right now. The only thing that's defending g2 is this knight on e3. And it can very easily be removed. So we do see knight going to h4. Like I said, everything is kind of going towards white, making sure that they protect this pawn. So it's not absolutely ideal as white that you're pretty much just going on a defensive. But I mean, both sides pretty much it's dead even. White has a good structure. They don't have doubled pawns in two different places. So I mean, it's kind of, it's kind of fairly even. We do see rook going down to g5. If you're black, one of the things you want to be thinking about, like I said, is the fact that you do have these doubled pawns. So you kind of want to get rid of those. So you're just trying to make sure that you have as much oomph as possible for an f5 pawn push, which is what we do see later on in the game. We see the move c3. We got a6, just creating some look for our bishop because b4 is probably on the menu. And here it goes. You're absolutely not getting any king side space if you're white. So, I mean, the only option that you have is to go queen side. So why not get a little bit of space over here? We do see the bishop dropping back to a7. We see rook a to d1. We do see bishop taking e3 and then queen taking e3. And like I said, this knight on h4 is kind of a lone, a lone ranger. Just like, I'm just protecting everything. It's trying to hold f5. It's trying to hold g2. So, I mean, it's definitely, it's like I said, it's dead even. But from a human perspective, I mean, you can kind of feel white is under a little bit of pressure, though. We do see king sliding over to b8. Never bad to just make sure you tuck your king away. We got rook up to d2, and this is actually a pretty good idea simply because, you know, if we can get this f-pawn push, we can laterally defend g2. You guys see that there's a lot of pressure going on. We got both of these rooks. This bishop is kind of eyeing down here. This queen has the possibility of coming in. So if you don't play correctly as white, I mean, you can get into some trouble. So we do see that f5 pawn push that I was mentioning before. We got pawn taking f5, bishop taking f5, and then we have the move d4. And in this position, some of you guys might be like, wait a minute. Okay, I understand before we had like that checkmate thread with the e5 pawn. But I mean, can't you just take the e5 pawn now? Like, is it possible? Well, the problem is it's like almost always a poison pawn in this particular game. You would, after queen takes e5, you're like, hey, man, I won the pawn. You would be looking at bishop to h3. And you're like, what's going on with this e-pawn, bro? Why? Can't I just get it for free? No. This bishop now is attacking g2. So you see everything is bearing down on this g2 square. So that is kind of where bishop to h3 came into play. And you have this attack on the queen. So you don't want to go into that. So we don't see Wesley so do that. We see him just simply calmly play the move d4. We got e4 because at that point, you do have a possibility of taking with the e-pawn and then you're hitting the queen. So something has to be done. So we do see e4, knight takes f5, and then queen takes f5. And the queen has kind of slowly started to get into the action. But like I said, we do see the lateral defense with the move f3. We got queen going back to g6. We see g3. So like I said, you see that white has kind of been defending their position for just quite a little while. We do see queen going to h5. And this is a very crazy position that we have right here. We see the move king to g1 in the game, which, I mean, the thing about it is, if you're on h1, it seems to be a lot safer than anywhere, right? So it's like, you really don't necessarily, I mean, like, look at this. You're moving into these rooks, right? I mean, you know, it felt like there has to be something going on right there. King is going to g1. But the crazy thing about it is, the thing that's crazier to me is the fact that king to g2 is actually, like, by far the heavily, like, you know, suggested move by the computer. It's like, yeah, man. But it's like, I mean, think about it. You're a human, right? Like, why would I move closer to all of this right here? It just seems crazy to me. Anyways, man, we see king to g1, bro. Which is still crazy anyways. We got queen going down to h3. We got the rook going over to g2. I mean, you see that there's a lot of pressure. So it's like, why king to g2? I can't honestly explain it to you why king to g2 is better. But we see rook to g2, and basically the rook is kind of like a pawn. You know, normally you have like a pawn in front of the king. You don't have a rook in front of the king, but it works. Pawn takes f3. We do see rook taking f3. We got the move f5. So you have a broken structure over here on the king side. So, I mean, you kind of need to like use these pawns dynamically. Moving the f-pawn and moving the h-pawn would be really, really good for you to be able to try to rip the position open. Maybe you can get some play along the h-file. So we do see rook going up to f4, just trying to blunt all of that. We do see queen going up to h5, and then we do see queen going to f3. And the thing about it is, if you are white, this is what you have to be thinking about. Okay, black has split pawns over here on the king side. They have doubled pawns over here on the queen side. My pawn chain is completely healthy everywhere. Like, if you can go into a queen trade in this position, you would actually have a much more favorable endgame. Not that it's won, but you definitely have a much easier endgame to play. And I mean, Wesley So's pretty good at endgames, right? So, I mean, why not try to go into that trade? So, Lazavik, of course, he's like, bro, I don't want that, dog. Like, I'm going to go ahead and just fade back. So this was definitely the correct decision, going queen to g6. Rook goes to f2. Now, white is on a little bit of an offensive. It's like, hey, man, you got this weak pawn on f5. So, like, let me see if I could gobble it up. I'm a little hungry, bro. So the rook goes over to f8. We do see king to g2, and it's like, success. Finally, I got king to g2 in. It's crazy. Like I said, I mean, you don't have all the pieces here on the g file, but it's like, man, that's a bold move to make, homies. Bold chess. We do see the move h5. Like I said, man, you got to try to get some dynamism with these pawns. We got h5. We got the move a4. So both players aren't really trying to change what they're doing. You know, white is heavily attacking this pawn and black is heavily defending it. So you kind of have to find some other moves to play. So we see h5. We see a4. Queen going back to g8. We see a5. We see queen to d6. So not a whole lot has really changed in the position. You know, both sides just kind of like try to improve a little bit. It does seem like Lazavik is kind of holding the position just a little bit, trying not to really do any damage to himself. And then we actually see a move by Wesley So, and it is d5. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is kind of a curious move because of what I just said before. You know, black definitely has the worst structure. So d5 doesn't really look like something that would enter my mind. Like this is a move because you're really just kind of helping black with their pawn structure. After the pawn goes to d5, you see pawn taking and then queen taking. Yes, you have gotten your queen in a position to where you've moved it kind of out of the way and you are still hitting this pawn. Queen to d3 would have done it as well. But like I said, I mean, you really just kind of just help black with one of their problems. So you got to be careful about doing that. We do see the queen going over to f6, and we have actually reached a critical position of the game. There is an absolutely killer move that Wesley So, he not only finds here, but he kind of like, you know, to have a really good advantage, he needs to find this move. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to guess what move that is, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So you guys remember me talking about the fact that white has the better structure. They are attacking this weakness and black is trying to, you know, protect the weakness, right? But there is a move that white has that actually undefends this F pawn pretty much completely. So if you found it, congratulations, you would have good vision, but it is the move h4. Now, of course, because the king did move up to this bold g2 square, you are now protecting the g3 square. So, you know, black doesn't have any like in-between moves. And as you guys can tell, this rook now can no longer maintain the protection of this f5 pawn. So this does just completely drop the pawn. So we do see the rook retreating back to g8. And then we do see rook taking f5. We got the rook sliding over to d8, saying, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and counterattack your queen. You're attacking my queen. But Wesley So has a beautiful move. Bam! In your face! Yes. Yeah. He's able to go down on a desperado tip and grab another pawn. And you see this king doesn't have nowhere to go. It's like, bro, you're in my face, dog. I got to get you. So king takes b7. We do see rook taking f6. And so now white is just up 2 entire pawns. And it's a little bit of complications, but this is definitely white for choice. We do see rook down to d3. You know, like, hey, man, I'm going to attack your g3 pawn. I'm going to attack your c3 pawn. But Wesley So's just like, bro, you're not attacking. I'm not giving up nothing, bro. You're not attacking none of my stuff, bro. So rook 6 comes to f3. We see rook down to d1. And then we decide, hey, we're going to attack your h pawn. And I'm just going to trade rooks. So the rook comes back to d3, and then we just use the other rook to defend, and we're attacking and everything. So, you know, white is picking black's position apart a little bit. We got rook down to d2 with check, and this is absolutely a spite check. There really is no rhyme or reason for it because the king is going to slide to h3. The rook goes over to h8. We see rook over to c5. Now you see that Wesley So is managing to like basically protect everything that's weak in his position, and he's definitely going on the offensive. So Lazavik has to go on the defensive because this h-pawn is going to be under fire. We see rook to d7, rook f to f5, and then the rook goes over to h7, rook d to h7. And you can see that black is completely tied down now to the protection of this pawn, and the king really doesn't have a whole lot of places to go. We got the move c4. You know, white is like, hey, I'm not changing nothing. I'm just still attacking your h-pawn. I'm just going to go ahead and improve my pawn over here. The king slides up to b8, and then we do see the move b5. You see that white is like, bro, I'm going to make progress, homie. So we do see pawn taking b5, pawn taking b5. We got the king down to b7. We got the move a6 with check. The king slides up. You really don't necessarily want to go down. You do kind of have to hold this square a little bit. So like I said, the king is really, really restricted over here. But we got king to b8, like I said. We do see rook to c6. We got king down to a7. Rook f goes to c5. And you see that, you know, what white is trying to do is they have a superior, they have superior pawns. So what they really would like to do to just try to help them get in a more winning position is to trade a set of rooks. As I always tell you guys, if you have superior material, you're up some material, usually trades are going to favor you. Not every time, but usually they'll favor you. So this is favorable to get a set of rooks off the board. The king goes up to b8. We see rook over to f6. We see rook to g8. We see rook to g5. Like, trade me, trade me. No. Absolutely not, sir. I'm not trading you. It does not benefit black at all to trade. So the rook slides over to d8. We see rook f to g6. And you see that white is always constantly making threats of trading pieces. You want to go rook to g8, get a set of rooks off the board, and then it's just going to be easy selling on the endgame. So you try to sidestep it this way, but this does allow rook to g7, and you are constantly putting black in a position to where they're going to have to trade rooks at some point. So this is what we see here. Rook takes g7, rook takes g7. The king slides down to b6. We do see rook going down to g5, attacking that pawn once again. The rook slides over to h8. So you see that the white rook is in perfect position to attack the pawn, but then also protect the base of his pawn chain over here on the queen side. So, white is holding very well. Plus, they have some reserve tempi that they can use if they want to just, kind of pass the move to black. We do see the move g4. Pawn takes g4 check. King takes g4. We got the move c6. Pawn takes c6. So it kind of looks like black is, doing a little something on the queen side, but, white is having the last laugh. We do see pawn taking h6. We got the move h5. We got king to b6. And then we see rook to g6. And it is in this position that Lazavik does resign the game. And I think that quite a few of you are looking at this like, yeah, man, like this is two pawns and a rook against a rook and a king. Like, I mean, you just can't win this type of an endgame. But some of you, you might be looking like, okay, well, how is it won? Like, what does white need to really kind of do? Like, what does black need to do to try to see if they can hold it or anything? Well, I'm going to show you the exact reason why this is not holdable by black. You have a couple different options if you're black right here. You have the rook that can move. Obviously, you have the king that can move. Really, neither one of those scenarios are great for you because, white is going to be able to make progress up the board regardless of how you do. So basically, if you take a look at what I'm about to show you here, you can apply this to pretty much any different type of scenario. This is absolutely going to be one of the best ways to try to defend if you're black, but you see that white is able to just force their way through anyway. Let's say you have the idea like, hey, man, I'm going to try to just still maintain the defense of this pawn over here, the queening square. I'm not going to move my king. I'm not going to try to do anything fancy. So let's see what that looks like. But like I said, anything that you choose, this is pretty much going to be the result that white is going to be able to shoot for. You got rook to h7. You would see the move h6 pretty much in any scenario. You would probably go back to h8 with the rook. The king would make progress up to g5. You would see maybe the rook going down to h7. So if you adopted the idea, it's like, hey, man, I'm going to just shift my rook back and forth and try to just hold. Like you see that, white has made a lot of progress up the board and black really hasn't done anything but move back and forth. You would see c7, discovering an attack on the king right here. And you can avoid it, but it's going to get forced anyway, this exact position. So you might as well do it now. If you just stepped up with the king and allowed the queen to pawn, you have to take it. And then this would be, a check on g8, and it would be forcing you into the same position to where the rook is going to be able to go to g7 with check. And then you have to trade. The king is too far away, and you have a king and a queen versus a king. And that is an absolutely lost endgame. I think majority of people can understand like kind of why that's lost. Even if you don't really know like how to win it or something, you just know that it's won. So that is that. Now, all my people in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking magkaibigan, magandang umaga. It is about 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning over there, so it's pretty early. So amasal tayo whenever you do get up. Let me see. Mag lunch na tayo if you're going to eat lunch pretty early. I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by, and I'm going to see you guys next time.